chapter that we're up to is chapter 9 in the book of Shoftim, Judges. And we were studying this last week, the story of Abimelech, who became the king and the leader because he got the people of Shechem to agree that he should be the leader, and ultimately he ended up leading the Jewish people for 3 years.
You want to come up? Come
on. In a certain sense, this was very sad because Abimelech was obviously not righteous, but he did lead them, and according to some opinions, he did fight some wars with them to keep the safety of the, keep the enemies to a certain extent, to keep them not bothering us. So Abimelech killed out all of his siblings in order to get the throne, and there was one sibling of his that remained, and the reason why he remained was he escaped, and his name was Yosam. And Yosam, we spoke about last week how he gave the people of Shechem rebuke, and he told them a parable about trees that wanted to anoint a king over themselves. And so first they went to the olive tree and they told him to reign over us. And that's refers to Othniel ben Kenaz, the first shofet, the first judge. And the olive tree said to them, "Shall I cause my richness to cease, whereby God and men honor themselves through me, and I should just go to wave over the trees?" So he basically declined. And then the trees went to the fig tree. "You should go and reign over us." And the fig tree said, "Shall I cause my sweetness and my goodly produce to cease and go to wave over the trees?" And then so he declined the fig tree. And then they went to the grapevine, and the same thing happened. "Shall I give up my vintage that gladdens God and man and go to wave over the trees?" And the vine declined. And then all the trees went to the thorn and said, "You go and reign over us." And the thorn symbolizes Abimelech. The thorn is symbolizes a growth that has nothing to give. It only takes nourishment, and it harms anyone that stands in its way. And it's flammable. It could bring destruction to others. And so the thorn said to the trees, "If with honesty do you anoint me as king over you, then come and take shelter in my shade. But if not, then may a flame come forth from the thorn and consume the cedars of Lebanon." And that's what he was hinting to them, that this could be a very big, huge mistake that you people are making. Now, the people of Shechem, why did they want Abimelech to be king? So the simple understanding is that they were convinced that he was going to provide them preferential treatment if they accept him as judge. And so they thought, that they'll benefit from this. And that's obviously a terrible, terrible way to hire a king or a leader, is thinking that you have a personal benefit, even though this guy is wicked and evil. But for whatever reason, that's what it seems, that's what the people of Shechem, had in mind, that they were going to benefit from him. Either that, or he somehow convinced them, being a relative of, he was a person from Shechem, so he was like one of their friends or neighbors, or
His-
relatives.
His
So
mother's
his mother was from there. So
relatives.
his mother's relatives. Well, that's his relatives. He lived there. He lived with his mother.
Yeah.
So for whatever reason, the Shechemites accepted his argument, and they helped him and supported him to go kill all of his siblings, which was really a terrible, terrible thing. Now, Yosem ends off with a practical, very straight to the point sentence here. And we're in verse 16. I think this is where we left off last time. Chapter 9, verse 16. And it says, so now if you have acted with honesty and sincerity and crowned Abimelech, and if you have done good with Yerubal and his household, Yerubal is their father, Gidon, and if you have acted toward him corresponding to the kindness of his hands, and what that means is that Gidon was very, very, he was overly caring about the Jewish people. I mean, he was very selfless. He risked his life and fought, to save the Jewish people and to destroy their enemy. So he truly did a lot for the Jewish people. And Yosem is trying to emphasize to the people how little respect and gratitude they have for his father, who really did so much for them. And this is what they did, the people of Shem. Is that what they're going to do?
Him.
Is that what they're going to do? That they're just going to show no gratitude and they're just going to allow all of his kids to get killed? And so Yosem said that if you did this with honesty and you think that you're doing the right thing by hiring Abimelech, by appointing Abimelech, as my father went to war for you, as he cast his life aside and rescued you from the hand of Midian, yet you rose up against my father's house today and murdered his son, 70 souls on one rock, and you crowned Abimelech, son of his maidservant, over the inhabitants of Shechem, because he is your kinsman. So if you have acted with honesty and sincerity toward Yerubal, toward Gidon, and towards his household this day, then rejoice with Abimelech, and let him also rejoice with you. Now we're up to verse 20. But if not, may a fire go forth from Abimelech and consume the inhabitants of Shechem and Beis Milo, and may a fire go forth from the inhabitants of Shechem and Beis Milo and consume Abimelech. So Yosem gives sort of like a curse.
Curse, yeah.
If they didn't have good intentions, if it's as he thinks, which is that they had bad intentions, then he gave them a curse that let a fire go forth and consume Shechem and Beis Milo, and let a fire go forth from Shechem and Beis Milo and consume Abimelech. That was basically the end of Yosem's speech, and his point was very clear that what a foolish mistake they made, and we'll soon see that they did, because in the end they got into a fight, and it was a terrible, terrible ending for everyone. And then Yosem knew he better run away. So then verse 21 says, then Yosem ran away. He fled and went to Be'er and settled there because of Abimelech, his brother. So Abimelech, of course, would kill anyone that went in his way, and it was a possible threat. And so Yosem, of course, had to run away. And now we're on verse 22. Abimelech was master over Israel for 3 years. And then God sent a spirit of ill, ruach ra'ah, a bad spirit between Abimelech and the people of Shem. And the inhabitants of Shem betrayed Abimelech, so that the violence against the 70 sons of Yerubbaal would come back and on their blood would be placed upon Abimelech, their brother, who murdered them, and upon the inhabitants of Shem, who strengthened his hand to murder his brothers. So basically, the verse tells us very clearly that everyone ended up suffering exactly as Yosam had predicted. And now we're up to verse 25. And it says, the inhabitants of Shem set up ambushes against him on the mountaintops, and they robbed anyone who would pass them on the road. And this was told to Abimelech. So what verse 25 tells us is that the people of Shem figured, you know what? Abimelech at some point is going to come here. So they hired people to go to the mountaintops to ambush him and kill him. The problem was there wasn't a lot of business because Abimelech was not traveling. So they were so in the mode of just ambushing and killing or stealing. So whoever came to the mountains, they were just these people who they thought they were, the people of Shem thought they're hiring people just to kill Abimelech. They ended up killing anyone that came by, or at least stealing from them and causing notice to the entire Jewish people. And so this is the reason that Abimelech ended up not coming in the end, because I just like to ask everyone to mute themselves. For some reason, I hear a background noise, and I don't know, on my phone, it's hard to mute it. I don't know why I can't figure out how to mute it. Oh, no. I'm not sure how to mute everyone on this phone. So if you could all mute yourselves, maybe that'll help. I think there's some background noise that might be bothering some people. Okay, thank you for muting yourselves. So as I was mentioning, the people of Shem, they had hired these individuals to hang out in the mountaintops. The problem is, when the word went around that there are people ambushing others on the mountaintops, the Abimelech said, you know what, I'm not going to travel there. So he stopped traveling there so they could never get him. So now Abimelech is not traveling there. Now, one of their claims was that they wanted to show that Abimelech is not doing a good job being the leader. So they're ambushing people, showing that there's criminals, and the truth is, they were saying even more, we're not under Abimelech's laws. We're not subject to his rules. He is not in charge of us. So by doing these criminal acts, they're like declaring that they're no longer subject to Abimelech's leadership. And of course, this was very painful to Abimelech because he thought he's getting everyone. And when he's missing one little city, to him, that it's almost like Haman, who couldn't handle when one Jew wasn't bowing down to him, even though he had the whole people. All the people were bowing down to him. Here, Abimelech, the city of Shem, they're not bowing down to him. They're not accepting his leadership. So he now wants to, he is it was very hurtful to him. Now, verse 26 says, Gal, the son of Ebed, came with his kinsmen, and they passed into Shechem. Now, this Gal is not Jewish. Rashi says, Me'uma acheres. He was from another nation, and he also hated Abimelech, and he had his private army. Now, the people of Shechem had a problem, because in Shechem, they sort of locked the gates. They felt safe inside Shechem. But when they went out of the city, they were nervous because Abimelech could come anytime and just kill them. And that's the type of person he was. So they were nervous to even harvest their grapes. But when Gal came, the inhabitants of Shechem had confidence in him. I guess together with his army, they felt safe to go and they went out to the field. That's verse 27. And they went out to the field, harvested their vineyards, and trod the grapes and made celebrations. They came to the temple of their God, and they ate and drank and cursed Abimelech. So it's not like they're hating Abimelech for his evil ways against Hashem. They're even worshiping their God. They're worshiping some god and some idol of theirs, and they're eating and drinking and they're cursing Abimelech. They are in a major fight with Abimelech, and the next verse says, Gal, son of Ebed, said, "Who is Abimelech and who is Shechem that we should serve him? Is he not the son of Yerubbaal, and is Zvul not his officer?" And what that means is that Gal was a real activist, or he was an inciter, and he was inciting the people. Like, what do we need this Abimelech for? And who does he think he is? He's going to rule over us. He's the son of Yerubbaal. He belongs in the city where Yerubbaal lived. Yerubbaal didn't live in Shechem. And Zvul, who's Zvul? Zvul was the mayor of Shechem, who was hired by Abimelech. And just like they hated Abimelech, they hated Zvul. And Zvul, they were claiming he doesn't deserve our respect. We don't owe him any allegiance. And if we want to hire someone, we should hire someone who is from here, from Shechem. Go serve the people of Hamor, the father of Shechem. And that's sort of like a little sarcasm, because what he's saying is, who were the original Shechemites? Shechem is mentioned in the Torah, the story of Dinah being raped by Shechem, and her father was Hamor, and Shechem's father was Hamor, and so this Gal is getting the people all, he's inciting them and telling them, what do we need someone from outside to go rule over us? We need this Abimelech and Zvul. Want to get someone who lived here. You want to get someone whose father used to be a ruler? Fine, get the grandson, get the son of Hamor, who used to rule here. He was someone who belonged here. Go serve the people of Hamor, the father of Shechem. Why should we serve him? So we're now in verse 29. And it continues and says, if only someone would give the people into my hand, then I would depose Abimelech. He said to Abimelech, reinforce your army and come out. There's a difference of opinion in the commentaries over here. Did he actually just say this out loud? So the Radak says it means that he was just saying this, like Abimelech wasn't there, but he's saying, come and let's fight him. You know, he was just saying it like to boast, in a boastful way, so to speak. But according to other opinions, Gal said this before the mayor, Zvul, in order that Zvul would tell Abimelech this. He was telling him, go tell Abimelech that if he wants to fight, we can fight. Let him come out, reinforce his army, and come out. And so Zvul, the leader of the city, heard the words of Gal, the son of Eved, and his wrath flared. So we're now in verse 31. So Gal challenged Abimelech, and verse 31 says he sent messengers. Now Zvul, who's the mayor, he sent messengers to Abimelech to tell him what's going on. So he sent messengers to Abimelech stealthily, saying, behold, Gal, the son of Eved, and his kinsmen are arriving in Shechem. And behold, they are fortifying the city against you. So he's giving him, a little heads up what's going on over here. And so now rise up at night. So he gives him some advice. This is Zvul, the mayor, is giving advice to Abimelech, who hired him. And he's giving him advice. He says, rise up at night, you and the people who are with you, and set an ambush in the field. It shall be in the morning, when the sun shines, you will arise early and spread out by the city. And then behold, just as he and the people with him are going out towards you, you will do to them whatever your strength permits. So Gal is in the city and going to be heading to Abimelech to fight a war. And Abimelech now is going to be very well prepared. He's going to come first. Abimelech will be already waiting there, and he'll be able to see the people when they're heading out, and we can do with them. He'll do with them whatever he can. So Abimelech. And all the people with him rose up at night and set an ambush against Shechem of 4 companies. That means 4 groups. So there's 4 groups. The army is divided into 4 groups. And Gal, the son of Eved, went out and stood at the entrance of the city gate. And the reason why Gal is going out, standing at the city gate, not that he was expecting Abimelech to come, but for whatever reason, he was going to be heading, I guess, to Abimelech to fight his war, because he wanted to get rid of Abimelech. That was his main interest. Little did he know that Abimelech was actually very close by. Now, then Abimelech and the people with him rose up from the ambush. So Abimelech is right around the corner over here. And Gal saw the people and said to Zvul, so somehow Zvul and Gal had some type of a relationship, even though they hated each other, but they maintained some type of a civil relationship. And as they left the city together, Gal noticed that Abimelech's people were coming to ambush him. And Zvul is going to try to hide the truth. So Zvul here, so Gal saw the people, and he said to Zvul, "Behold, people are descending from the mountaintops. It must be, Abimelech who's coming. They must be coming to fight this war." And Zvul said to him, "Oh, it's not. There's no one coming to fight a war. You see the shadow of the mountains as people. You're in dreamland. You're paranoid. There's no one coming. It's just the shadows of the mountains." And so Gal continued to speak, and he said, "Behold, people are descending from the navel of the land, and one company is coming by way of the plain of Mo'inanim," which means that there's another group coming from another end. So Gal had very good vision, it seems like, and he saw clearly what was going on. And Zvul tried to conceal the truth, but he couldn't hide it from Gal, who saw with his physical eyes what was happening. And of course, Zvul knew very well also what was going on. He's the one who told Abimelech about everything that was happening. And so he was just hiding the truth from Gal. So again, what we have going on here is Abimelech is the leader, very evil leader. The people of Shechem have chosen to fight Abimelech together with Gal. Gal is this non-Jewish individual with his army who have come to town because they also hate Abimelech. So they have a common enemy, Gal and the people of Shechem. And so they are hoping to kill Abimelech. And Abimelech has his mayor of the city of Shechem that he appointed, and his name is Zvul. And right now, they're about to have a major war. And they're right at the entrance of the gate of the town of Shechem, and Gal sees that Abimelech is coming with his people. So Zvul said to him, "Where then is your mouth that would say, 'Who is Abimelech that we should serve him?'" You're right. You just said that. "Who is Abimelech that we should serve him?" You were saying that. Is this not the people you scorned? Go out now, if you please, and battle it. So Zvul is telling Gal that he's saying that if you're really want to claim, if you claim that you're ready to fight Abimelech, let's see it. Go do it. Do what you say. Don't be a hypocrite. You said you want to fight him. Go fight him. He's right here. So go now, if you please, and battle it. So now we're on chapter 9, verse 39. Gal went and went out before the inhabitants of Shechem and battled Abimelech. He wasn't afraid. He went to fight Abimelech. Now Abimelech pursued him, and he fled before him. So Abimelech started chasing him, and many corpses fell up to the entrance of the gate. Abimelech settled in Arumah. And Zvul drove out Gal and his kinsmen from living in Shechem. So it seems like Abimelech won more or less the war. To what extent, we don't know how many people. I'm sure Abimelech must have lost some people, but at this point, they basically took back over Shechem, the city. Zvul was able to get rid of whoever he didn't want now. He was able to get rid of Gal because many of the Shechemites had died because Abimelech had murdered them. And now Abimelech, once he got rid of the Gal's army, and Zvul just finished off the job. He got rid of Gal completely, and he got rid of those that hated Abimelech, because now it's like they didn't have an army left. They didn't have anything to rely on to fight Abimelech. So the people who remained, the people who were there, were like loyal to Abimelech, and they were too strong. That there was no possibility to fight them. Now, what it seems like, and this is what the Radak mentions here, is that it wasn't the entire city of Shechem that hated Abimelech. There were some people in the city that liked Zvul, and they kept, they were comfortable with Abimelech, and they were, that was the story, that in the city of Shechem, it wasn't completely people who wanted to rebel. So therefore, at this point, Zvul was able to take it back over. And Gal went out. I'm sorry. Verse 41, we said Abimelech settled in Aruma, and Zvul drove out Gal and his kinsmen from living in Shechem. And now we're on verse 42. And it happened the next day that the people went out to the field, and they told this to Abimelech. So Abimelech wanted to get total revenge against Shechem, and basically Abimelech wanted to kill anyone left that was like a rebellious, that was siding with Gal. Abimelech was hoping to destroy. So the next day they went out to the field because they felt that okay, Abimelech won the war and that's it, it's over. But really, Abimelech was hoping to destroy more, to kill more of them. And the people went out to the field and they told this to Abimelech. So Abimelech took his people and he divided them into 3 groups. And he set an ambush in the field to kill anyone who came to the field to go get their grapes and harvest whatever produce they had. And so he wants to really wipe them out. And he took his people, he divided it in 3 companies, in 3 groups, and he set an ambush in the field. He watched, and behold, as the people were leaving the city, he rose up against them and struck them. So I must say, this is a very sad part of our history. This is not really enjoyable to read. We're just going through it. It's a very sad thing that this is the way things were in the days of the Shoftim, and it seems like there was a lot of violence, and people did not have the respect under maybe appreciation of life that we have today. It's very shocking to read these type of stories, but this is what happened. I wish I could rewrite the history, but I'm giving you the real story. So he took his people, he divided them, he watched, he struck them. Abimelech, we're now in verse 44. Abimelech and the companies that were with him spread out and stood at the entrance of the city gate, and the other two groups spread out against all who were in the field and struck them. Abimelech fought against the city all that day. He occupied the city, killed the people who were in it. He tore down the city and sowed it with salt. So what this means is that he didn't want them to be able to grow anything there. So I guess it means he poured salt all over it, and all the fields, and the vineyards. It kills the vineyards. It was also going to it will be a lesson for any other city that thinks they're going to want to rebel. He's trying to teach a lesson that it's not going to be worth trying to rebel. And so he poured salt over the field. Now I'm not into planting and stuff, so I don't know how bad salt is for the field, but I guess some of you maybe have some scientific information about that. Does anyone know anything about salt on a field that you're trying to plant?
Well, salt will not let you grow vegetation.
Does it kill it?
Salty. There are salty fields that nothing grows on them.
So it kills all the potential for growing salt. Salt kills it.
Right. For a while, at least, until the rain washes it off deep enough.
Right. Okay, thank you, Ben. So now Abimelech did that to the city of Shechem, but this is not it. Now it gets even worse. When all the inhabitants of the tower of Shechem heard about this, they came to the citadel of Beis El Bris, and the people gathered at this place. Abimelech was told that all the inhabitants of the tower of Shechem had gathered. So Abimelech went up to this place called Har Tzalmoin. He and all the people that were with him. And Abimelech took the axes in his hand and cut down a branch of the trees. And then he lifted it and placed it on his shoulder. And he said to the people that were with him, "What you have seen me do, hurry and do as I did." So here, the people of his army, his soldiers, he tells them to cut down a branch, and everyone should cut down a branch. So they all did that. Each of the people, verse 49, each of the people also cut down a branch, and they followed Abimelech. Now they're right near this place where all of the inhabitants who had escaped initially, they are now in this citadel, and they placed them. They placed the wood. The people of Abimelech now put their wood there, right next to it, and set the citadel on fire. all the people of the Tower of Shechem died, about 1,000 men and women. So basically, Abimelech is totally destroying the people of Shechem, and then after finished with Shechem, then Abimelech went to the next place, the next city, which was also rebelling, and it's called Teves. And he encamped there in Teves, and he occupied it. This was the last outpost of the rebels, and what Abimelech was planning on doing was, as we see, they had also a very strong tower there, and Abimelech planned on doing the same thing at this tower, that he'll burn it, and they will die from, of course, smoke inhalation, and that's what he planned on doing at this place as well. So there was a strong tower, where in verse 51, there was a strong tower in the midst of the city, and all the men and women and the inhabitants of the city fled and locked themselves in this tower. They climbed to the roof of the tower. Now Abimelech reached the tower and fought against it. He approached the tower's entrance to burn it on fire. And this is where Abimelech finally gets his punishment. A certain woman threw down part of an upper millstone on Abimelech's head and crushed his skull. So finally, we get rid of Abimelech here. He didn't die, but he's quite seriously wounded. And he called quickly to his attendant, who was his armor bearer, and said to him, "Draw your sword and kill me, lest they say of me, a woman killed him." And so that was the story of Abimelech's end. His attendant stabbed him, and he died. The men of Israel saw that Abimelech had died, and each man went back to his place. So this is where the story of Abimelech really concludes, with the curse of Yosam that finally came true, and finally got rid of Abimelech after 3 years and after a lot of bloodshed. And verse 56 says that thus God repaid the evil of Abimelech that he had done to his father by murdering his 70 brothers. And all the evil men of Shechem God brought upon their heads, and the curse of Yosam, the son of Yerubbaal, came upon them. So we've now concluded chapter 9 of the book of Shoftim. I did want to mention that there was a similar ending in the story of King Saul, where Saul wanted his armor bearer to end his life. And the thing is that this is very different. What was Abimelech's reason why he wanted his armor bearer to end his life? Because he didn't want that people will say that a woman killed him. That was the most important thing on his mind, that no one should say that. Now, what's it going to help him when he's dead? That what people say, it's not going to change much. But he was so nervous, even after he died, that people will say such a thing. What's so bad? A woman killed him. But whatever it is, that was the biggest thing on his mind, was that a woman killed him. Now, what happened with King Saul was really different. Of course, Saul was a righteous person, even though we do find mistakes that he made, but at the same time he was a very righteous king, and he was justified when he wanted that he didn't want that Hashem's name, the Jewish people's name, will be desecrated if the Plishtim came upon him and killed him in a degrading manner. So therefore, Shaul's claim was a whole different story. I'm mentioning it because we shouldn't think that it's similar. It sounds similar, but really deep down, it's a whole different story. Shaul was worried about the honor of the Jewish people, and this man this Abimelech was only worried about his name, personal name, and who killed him. Now,
was there a woman involved in this story on these verses? I didn't come across a woman.
So if you look in verse 54, 53 actually. Read verse 53. Do you have it in front of you? Verse 53.
A woman. Oh, the woman that dropped the millstone on Abimelech. Okay.
On Abimelech's head. So this is what it all boils down to. But he threw the millstone on his head, and he almost, he was quite wounded, and he basically just wanted someone else to kill him, so no one would say that a woman killed him.
Okay.
It didn't help much because it's written right in our book. It's written in the Bible that a woman threw the millstone down, so it didn't really help that much that people, will say that a man killed him. But whatever, he thought, at least in his mind, he thought he had a brilliant idea that that his arm bearer killed him. It would be better. So
there is something slightly similar by Gideon when he asked his son to kill the Midianite king, because he didn't want the Midianite king to have somebody in his rank killing him, but rather a kid should be killing him. It's also shaming him.
Actually, it was the opposite. I think that the kings, the Midianite generals, they didn't want that people will say a kid killed us. They wanted that it should be done through Gideon himself.
That's what I said, yeah, because that would shame them if a kid killed them. But Gideon asked his son to do it. And that was, he was going to shame them, but the son didn't want to do it, and Gideon had to do it.
Right. The difference of what you're saying is that the reason why Gideon wanted this was because he wanted to humiliate them.
Right.
I'm not sure if we learned that, if we saw any commentary say that. In other words, there's 2 points. One is to humiliate them on purpose. Was that Gideon's intent? The other is when they said, please don't have your son do it, what was their intent was we shouldn't be humiliated, but not necessarily was that Gideon's intent. That was my point. In other words, what you said is correct, but I'm not sure if, because what we mentioned, maybe there is other explanations, but what we mentioned was Gideon wanted to get his son in the mode of being a leader. That was the reason why that. In other words, I don't know if it was.
There could have been 2 reasons.
You're right. It could
be. Have been 2 reasons for it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying it's wrong, but the way we learned it was the other way. But it would be interesting to look back now, and we should see.
But we also talked about it in Shoftim with Yael, which also we said a woman killed him.
Right.
Yeah, it's always the same, humiliating them.
Right. This was what you're talking about is in chapter 8, verse 20. And if you look in the commentaries, let's see, verse 20. It doesn't say so clearly, so maybe you have a point. Yeah. I'll have to look up in the other. I don't have other commentaries with me here. Although I do see
But
that
definitely,
Abarbanel
Yeah.
says that to initiate his son in leadership.
yeah, maybe they don't pick up on it because it's not an important thing to us, but to the king of Midian, it was a big thing.
Right. No, but so yeah, you got a point. Right. You do see these ideas that people were very nervous about what people will say afterwards. So,
Right.
Rabbi Smith?
Yes.
The commentary, the one that I have says, 821, they said, your son is not strong enough to kill us quickly. If he would smite us, we would linger in a painful, drawn-out death. You can kill us with one blow. That's the commentary for chapter 821 that I have.
So that's one of the explanations, but there is another one that the kings felt it was improper for them to be killed by a commoner if they were to die. This is the Barbanel also. So your explanation is correct according to that's some opinions, and the other explanation is the way I mentioned it. So what you're saying is right. But thank you. Yeah, thank you for mentioning it.
I just want to add that Sisera had the best time. He did not know he was killed by a woman.
He was so drunk, right. He didn't have time to think about it. But
she got all the credit.
She got the credit. So that's true. If anyone was embarrassed of being a fool, it was Sisera who fell into the trap. Where she gave him the to go to sleep, and the wine and the milk. So okay, so let's continue. Chapter 10. Chapter 10. After Abimelech, there arose to save Israel Tola, the son of Tola ben Pua, and Ben Doidai. It was the son of Doidai. So this is the next Shofet, the next judge after Abimelech. His name was Tola. What tribe was he from? Ish Yisachar. He was a man from Yisachar, and he dwelt in Shamir in Mount Ephraim. Why did he dwell in this mountain that wasn't in the territory of Yisachar, which he should have dwelt in? So the simple reason is he wanted to be centrally located to be able to lead the people effectively. So he judged them, as the next verse says, verse 2, he judged Israel for 23 years. He died and he was buried in Shamir. Now, verse 3, after him there arose Yair the Gileadite, Yair HaGiladi. Now, this is different than Yiftach HaGiladi. This is someone else. This is the next Shofet is Yair from Gilad, and he judged the Israel for 22 years. He had 30 sons riding 30 colts, and they owned 30 towns, and they would call the villages of Yair, they would call them Chavos Yair until this day, which were in the land of Gilad. So Gilad was outside of the land of Israel, and it was on the east side of Israel, and this is where some of the tribes had taken their portion of the land, and it was in the area of Gad. Gilad was in the area of Gad, and it was on the east side of the Jordan River. Well, it was. I guess there were different. There was Mount Gilad, and there's Ramoth Gilad, which was in the side of in the tribe of Manasseh. But basically, we're talking about the 2.5 tribes that had their that took their portion in the land that was east of Israel, on the east side, over the Jordan River, the east side of the Jordan River. Now, this was in the land of Gilad. Yair died and was buried in Kamoin. So these are two of the Shoftim that we have very little. We know very little about. They did lead the Jewish people. It seems that they were uneventful years. And
Chavat Yair was in the news even about a
30
dozen
sons,
years
22
ago.
years. So he
There
was
was
too
a
busy.
fight between Israel and Syria about
Busy,
Chavat
sir.
Yair. That Israel said it belongs to Israel.
I don't know if this area is I mean, isn't Syria more like north of Israel? This is
Yeah,
totally
it's
on
not
the
of
east side.
Israel. It's not of Israel, but that's where Chavat Yair is.
Well, listen, the at least
So
Okay, maybe.
from the northern part of Israel, you can enter the Golan Heights by going east.
That's where it is, yeah.
Okay, maybe. I don't know. Now, there's two Chavos Yair. There's the Chavos Yair in the Chumash, and then there's the Chavos Yair that we have here in the book of Shoftim. Now, it could be.
I don't know which one.
Right. It could be the same. It could be they named it again Chavos Yair because there was a grandson. I'm sorry, a son of Menashe, Yair ben Menashe, in the Chumash, who conquered land, and he called it Chavos Yair. And the rabbis bring it up over here and say, was this the same Yair who became the leader here, Yair Hagiladi? And they generally say it seems surprising that this would be the Yair ben Menashe, which is mentioned in Chumash in the book of Numbers, in chapter 32, where Yair called his cities Chavos Yair, the cities of the villages of Yair. But it would be very surprising if it's the same person because this is 300 years later. I mean, it's not impossible. Pinchas was still alive, who was also, who was alive then. So, there were some individuals that had longevity, very, miraculous longevity. But the common understanding is that this is a different person. So the question is then if the cities maybe the cities were still in the same area. In any event, each of the children of Yair had one of these cities, and they called them Chavis Yair. And I guess we'll conclude here.